was mid-review on a stack of zoning variances when my phone slammed onto the polished surface of my desk, vibrating hard enough to rattle my pen holder. My father's name flashed across the screen. Richard, 65 years old today. I assumed it would be something harmless as seating question, a wine preference. Maybe a reminder not to embarrass him in front of his donors. Instead, I read a sentence so clean and cruel it felt surgical. Do not bring the child. A fatherless situation reflects poorly. I won't explain that to my guests. He didn't even use her name. My 4-year-old daughter had been reduced to an inconvenience, a liability, an object to be managed. I didn't gasp. I didn't drop the phone. I didn't even feel sad. What settled over me was colder than anger precision. Something inside me aligned, like a scope clicking into focus. 29 years of silence, of swallowing, of hoping my loyalty would eventually translate into love. And here it was. The answer. Clear as a blade. The air outside had teeth that night. The kind of winter cold that slices straight through fabric and nerves, settles in your bones, and refuses to leave. I walked down the long driveway, heels striking the frozen concrete in even, deliberate beats. I never turned around. I didn't need to see the house glowing behind me, full of laughter that wasn't meant for me. Warmth I was never invited to share. They probably imagined I was unraveling somewhere, crying in my car, devastated. The disappointing daughter finally put in her place. They misread me completely. I wasn't breaking down. I was recalibrating. Inside the car, I shut the door and locked it. The quiet wasn't empty, it was ceremonial. Like the hush before a verdict is read. I didn't start the engine. I reached for my laptop instead. Its screen casting a pale blue light across my face as I connected to my hotspot. The clock read 8:12 p.m. by 8:30. The structure holding their world together would quietly disappear. I logged into my bank first. For 3 years, I had been the invisible support beam under my father's life. When his construction company collapsed under its own mismanagement, I didn't lecture him. I didn't announce my sacrifice or wait for gratitude. I simply set up an automatic transfer. Every month, without fail, $3,200 slid from my account straight into his mortgage. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just entitlement dressed as expectation. I clicked into the Scheduled Payments tab. The next transfer sat there patiently, queued for 2 days from now. My cursor hovered for half a second. Asterisk delete recurring payment. Asterisk the confirmation blinked. Done. Just like that, the illusion of stability vanished. He didn't know it yet, but he was enjoying a luxury dinner in a house already bleeding out beneath him. Next came the Grant Family Trust. This was my father's blind spot. He loved the benefits but despised the details. Due to his history of what the bank politely called creative investing, they required an independent administrator. 5 years ago, he'd signed that responsibility over to me with a dismissive wave. Paperwork bored him. He thought I was helping. He forgot I was watching. A pending request caught my eye. $50. Zero scheduled for release on January 2nd. The memo read business development. Translation. Bad bets and a shiny new car he didn't need. I didn't deny it. That would have been obvious. Clumsy. I flagged it instead. Asterisk suspicious activity. Potential misuse of funds. Asterisk. Then I selected asterisk freeze assets. A red banner streaked across the top of the screen. Asterisk account locked pending investigation. Asterisk the only person authorized to reverse that decision was the administrator, and I wasn't feeling cooperative. Finally, I thought about the desk. When my mother died, the will reading had been ugly. Tiffany received the jewelry. My father took the cash and property. I was handed an old writing desk from the study, something dusty and unremarkable. Everyone laughed, said it was outdated, worthless. They didn't know my mother, and I had shared a quiet secret. The center drawer had a false bottom. Inside wasn't sentiment, it was evidence. For years, she documented everything, every forged signature, every dollar siphoned from her inheritance, every shell transfer he thought no one noticed. She couldn't leave him not in her condition, not with what she knew he was capable of. But she could prepare the truth for someone stronger. She left me the weapon tonight. I decided to stop keeping it holstered. I shut the laptop. Darkness returned. I started the engine as I backed out. I glanced once in the rearview mirror. The house looked impressive stone, glowing windows, carefully curated prestige. A monument to success. But monuments crack when their foundations rot. I pulled onto the open road, 22 degrees on the dashboard, but I felt lighter than I ever had. The highway stretched ahead, empty and patient. My thoughts drifted backward to the table. The faces. The decades I spent shrinking myself to fit their expectations. Why had I stayed so long? Then I remembered something I'd read once about circus elephants. As calves, they're tied with thin ropes to small stakes. They pull and pull until they exhaust themselves. Eventually, they stop trying. When they grow massive, strong enough to rip the stake from the ground with a single tug, they don't. They remain still, held not by rope, but by memory. For 29 years, I had been that elephant. My value in this family was transactional. I mattered when I paid bills, fixed problems, absorbed damage. Tiffany was the dreamer, the golden child. My father was the genius, the patriarch, and I was the backup plan with good credit. When Tiffany totaled her car 3 days before her 21st birthday, my father didn't ask if she was alive. He asked if I could cover the deductible. I paid it, smiled, hoped. When he drained $10,000 from my retirement fund for a sure thing investment and never repaid it, I was told family didn't keep score. The rope tightened every time. And every time, I convinced myself it was love. But tonight, something finally broke. It wasn't the insult alone. It was what followed it. The silence. The way no one defended my daughter or me. The way my joy had become their inconvenience. In that moment, sitting in my car in the freezing dark, I understood with terrible clarity. They didn't love me. They loved what I supplied. I glanced at the passenger seat where my purse rested, quiet, unassuming. Inside it sat the one thing they would never control again. The ultrasound photo I'd been carrying for weeks. Folded carefully. Protected. A grainy blur most people would overlook, but to me, it was everything. Proof that something new was growing. Someone untouched by my family's poison. My child. A fierce, almost animal instinct surged through me. This baby would never learn to beg for approval. Would never confuse love with usefulness. Would never be tied to a stake just because someone once told them they were small. I merged onto the highway, the car slipping into traffic as the city stretched into streaks of red and white light. I wasn't just leaving a dinner behind. I was exiting an entire belief system. The realization was terrifying and electric. The rope wasn't just loose. It was gone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't escaping. I was choosing. I dialed the one number I trusted completely. Cynthia, my mother's sister, the only person who'd seen through my father from the beginning, answered on the second ring. "Kelsey, what's wrong?" "Nothing," I said evenly. "Everything's over, and everything's starting." Christmas morning at Aunt Cynthia's house felt like stepping into a different universe. Cinnamon rolls cooling on the counter. Old coffee in chipped mugs. No marble floors or staged elegance. Just quiet warmth and a humming heater that worked harder than any of my father's staff ever had. Peaceful except for my phone. It had been vibrating nonstop for 3 hours on the kitchen counter. I didn't silence it. I wanted evidence. A timeline. The exact moment denial transformed into panic. At 9 a.m., a voicemail arrived. Richard. I put it on speaker. "You ungrateful little thief." He spat, his voice shaking with fury. "The trust is frozen. Who do you think you are? That money is mine. Unlock it in 5 minutes or I call the police." I'll have you arrested for embezzlement. You're nothing without me. Fix this? His voice cracked at the end. Not power. Fear. Cynthia's face drained pale. Kelsey, he's serious. He'll actually call the police. No, I said calmly, lifting my mug. He won't. I took a slow sip. Because the second law enforcement asks for documentation, he goes to prison for fraud. He knows that. This is desperation dressed as threat. Right on cue, a text from Tiffany lit up the screen. Asterisk card declined. I'm at the Aspen Resort with everyone. This is humiliating. Fix it now. Dad says you're ruining Christmas. You're so incredibly selfish. Asterisk, I scrolled through the messages, threats, insults, demands. The same pattern I'd spent years responding to with apologies and emergency transfers. But today, I felt nothing. It was like watching a tantrum through thick glass. Cynthia studied me quietly for a long moment. Why does he hate you so much? She finally asked. You're the only one who ever actually helped him. I didn't answer right away. I let the question settle, let the truth crystallize. It was never about the baby, I said finally. It was about exposure. My father lives behind a carefully constructed mask. Successful, brilliant, untouchable. Everyone believes the performance except me. I've seen the real numbers, the suffocating debt, the systematic theft. I'm not his disappointment. I'm his proof. Every time he looks at me, he sees the truth reflected back. That his empire is borrowed. That his confidence is costume. That his daughter had to rescue him from ruined. So he cut me out. Not because I failed him, but because I reminded him he had failed himself. He's an empty suit, I said quietly. And tonight, he realized I took the hanger. Snow had started falling harder outside, coating the windows in white, when Cynthia leaned forward with worry in her eyes. Be careful. Richard has powerful friends. That private equity firm, he's always bragging about, the one that supposedly saved him in 2020. Meridian Capital. They could make your life very difficult. I smiled slowly. They don't exist. She blinked. What do you mean? Meridian Capital is a shell company. I said evenly. I registered it 3 years ago. I'm the managing member. I'm the board. I'm the investor. Silence swallowed the kitchen whole. When the bank moved to foreclose, I continued. Dad refused help from his daughter. His pride wouldn't allow it. He couldn't stomach owing me anything. So I gave him a savior he could accept. A faceless firm. Professional distance. He signed everything I put in front of him without reading a single word. I slid the loan agreement across the table. Cynthia's hands trembled as they reached the final page. This says, full acceleration clause. Yes, I said. He didn't disown me. I met her eyes. He defaulted. 48 hours. Full repayment required. He thought this was a family argument. It was a foreclosure. On New Year's Eve, he showed up at my door stripped of certainty. His shoulders hunched. His eyes hollow. The patriarch reduced to a supplicant. You own the house, he rasped. I own the debt. I corrected calmly. You own the consequences. He cycled through everything: rage first, then guilt, then desperate sentiment. He even mentioned my pregnancy. Tried to invoke the grandchild he'd once dismissed as an inconvenience. No, I said firmly. You don't get to mortgage my child for sympathy. I handed him the folder. Inside was an exit, a fully paid off condo in Florida, a modest monthly stipend. Enough dignity to start over. One condition: he signs over the estate, releases all legal claims, and agrees to permanent no contact with me and my children. You're exiling me, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'm giving you dignity instead of eviction, I replied. That's more mercy than you ever gave me. He signed. The house became mine. I didn't preserve it as some shrine to the past. I reclaimed it. I repainted every wall, cleared out the ghosts, donated the pretentious art, turned his beloved study into a nursery painted soft yellow, filled with light. I wasn't erasing history. I was correcting it. On New Year's Day, I hosted dinner not for status, not for approval, not to prove anything to anyone, just people who had shown up for me with love when I had nothing to offer in return. There was laughter that echoed freely, warmth that asked nothing back. My daughter running between rooms, shrieking with joy, finally welcome somewhere that felt like home dot and sitting at the head of my own table. I finally understood something simple and devastatingly true. The real victory isn't earning a seat at a table that despises you. It's building your own and choosing who gets to call it home.